My Little Chickadee from 1940, a screwball comedy. And after a scandal runs a gold digger out of town, Mae West, she meets a con artist who's played by W.C. Fields and becomes embroiled in a string of petty deceits. This film was modeled after its stars' personas and a great commercial success.
You have two juggernauts of comedic actors.
Totally.
Coming together. While they hated each other in real life, which I found out, I didn't realize that.
Who knew?
You wouldn't know it in the film.
No.
Their timing, their chemistry was, in my opinion, perfection.
It was.
And as far as for the studios were concerned, it was great to have these two juggernauts together because it made a boatload of money for them and to keep them afloat too.
And it actually was, with Mae West, kind of the end of her financial career, because she had done a lot of films, but she actually, I think, might have got paid a little bit less at this picture because the time was kind of ending for Mae West and other pictures were coming in.
Yeah, she made like $40,000 on this film.
$40,000,
which,
yeah.
if you go back to her first feature film,
Yeah.
She'd Done Them Wrong, she was paid for $100,000. So you could see things start to wane for both actors.
Yeah.
And for them to come together in a slapstick kind of screwball comedy was a great feat for everyone.
I just had to look it up a little bit. It was a tenth of her salary that she made 5 years previous.
Yeah.
So it's sad, but these big stars all through history, and then the denouement of their career. And it's still going on now for people.
Right.
You see people that were hot box office killer, and then all of a sudden, they're giving, lower salaries just to get in a picture.
Now, the whole premise of the story is Mae West is being Mae West. She's this sassy, voluptuous woman that goes around to make ends meet by diamonds and cash with the men she gets, close to. If you notice, she never has sex with them.
No.
She just lures them in. And
She kisses them.
right. And the town that she's in is not only like in shock of her carrying on, but they actually take her to court too.
Well, she's run out of town first.
Right.
And that's where she meets W.C. Fields on the train, because she's run out of the little town and she's on the train. And she thinks W.C. Fields has a lot of money because she opens his bag when he's not looking and it looks like a ton of money, but they're advertising things. He's like a snake oil salesman. So there are little advertising things he would like throw up in the air for people to see.
And then in that train scene, the Indians are coming after them.
That's a riot.
And Mae is being Mae. So she's got the gun, she's got the rifle, blowing these, Indians along the way. And, W.C. Fields trying to save his own life.
Yeah.
He's making fun of the little fat kid. If you notice that every W.C. Fields film, he's always known as he hated dogs and he hated little kids. So in real life, that wasn't true, but his persona on film.
I actually like all that. I thought that this movie, for me, was more of their characters and had more funny bits.
And don't forget, folks, to like, subscribe, and comment below to our episode here and the other episodes that we have on the Reel Watchlist Bold Media Films station. And check us out. So this is a Wild West whiskey sour. It's a period piece, and especially during that time, whiskey was the drink of choice. Here we take some bourbon and we mix it in with some lemon juice to give it that tartness of both characters, and with a little simple syrup to make it a little bit sweet. Now I used a little bit of honey because I want to showcase a little bit more of Mae West's sweetness in this drink. You have a cherry. I have a lemon twist.
Thank God you gave me the cherry, because you know how I love them.
And
that's about the size. I got to get it. I don't care if my finger goes
As
in,
she
and I
puts
don't
her
care if
dirty
people
finger
think
in the
it's
drink.
not dirty. I washed it when I was getting changed.
And now she's putting her knuckle in there.
Yes.
And she's putting her hand in there, and she's now eating the cherry.
Oh my God. Even though cherry tastes like serious liquor.
Let's score this baby.
Oh, yeah, I forgot all about it. I'm so ossified.
Are you ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1, flip! Again, she disappoints me.
And I know that we're on there. I could tell.
I got a 9, she's got a 7. And do you know who my drawings represent?
Yeah, your W.C. Fields and your Mae West.
Very good.
I want to talk about Mae West. She had her first movie role at age 40. But do you remember a movie that she did? And Rex Reed, who was a big film critic, reviewed it. And I think he was in it, Myra Breckenridge. She was 77 years old. It was her last movie.
Oh, yes, terrible.
And
She played at 28 years old.
She had a clause that she hated W.C. Fields so much that she had a clause in her contract that if he drank during the day and got drunk, that she wouldn't film until he sobered up. So everything you see on W.C. Fields as far as liquor, it kind of was him.
And how can you, forget Margaret Hamilton?
Yeah, well, she was like the person who kind of snitched and told everybody about what Mae West was doing.
Yep, she was the one that drove the crowd against Mae West to drive her out of town. Why? Because she wasn't married. How could a woman like Mae West carry herself in a sexy way without being married? And on the train, when Mae West sees the stash in W.C. Fields' bag, all of a sudden, okay, maybe we'll marry. And they get married, and Margaret Hamilton, Mrs. Gideon, I think that was her name.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, she's happy. Everyone's happy because they're married. And now she's married, but again, you end up in a saloon, like Mae West loves to be. And again, there's a performance. Mae West always has to perform in her movies.
Yeah.
And she was older, too, because when she'd done them wrong, she was in her early 40s. And now, fast forward, she's carrying herself like a young...
Do you notice she was a lot thinner, though, and more shapely? Because if she done it wrong, she was, as I said before, zoftic. It's a term for a woman that's very curvy, but has some meat on her bones. She looked better. She looked more, she filled the dress out more beautifully.
And do you know how she got into those dresses?
They were sewn on
They were sewn on her. She couldn't get into that. They had to sew it on her. They're married now, so W.C. Fields is thinking, I have the woman of every man's dream, and I'm going to have sex with her. And they never have sex.
Well, she never lets him in the room.
She gets close, but not too close. And there's one scene where he's trying to get a note under the door. And there's a great story about that scene. Both W.C. Fields and Mae West were kind of butting heads. Yeah. And W.C. Fields would try to one-up her by adding lines without telling her. And Mae West was not having that. So they would challenge each other for lines. And there's this one scene that scene in particular, where he takes the letter, shoves it under the door, and her line is supposed to be, because he can't get it under the door. Her line is supposed to be, shove it under the door. And the way it came out, because she was so mad, in reality, she was so mad, she goes, shove it under the door. So I'm like...
Mrs. Twilley?
Shove it under the door.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about W.C. Fields, when I researched him, he was so poor that he actually... at 11, ran away from home, and he dug a hole in the ground, and he lived in the hole in the ground for a year. Can you imagine living in a hole in the ground? And he lived on scraps and stolen goods. He was a juggler and a pool player, but at 23, he was playing Buckingham Palace and was a huge hit.
He was known as the world's best juggler at one point.
And he made 37 films for Paramount Pictures. So, here's Paramount again. Here we go, always with... And he was always known for the asides under his breath. He would say mumbling, but they were a riot, the things he said.
Yeah, he had the one-liners. And it's fascinating to see him, when you learn about him, to transform from this juggling act in vaudeville to this great comedian.
Yeah.
And to learn that he was in silent films and then was able to evolve into talkies. Because, again, in silent films, you can't hear him talk. And when you hear him... he's known for his voice. He's known for his delivery. And to think that he actually started out in silent films and was actually popular then.
Yeah, and so many people did not transfer, as we know, in classic cinema. They just didn't. W.C. Fields got so crazy. First of all, he would drink every day. And somebody one time drank his booze. And he said, "Who stole my lunch?" Right? And
then sometimes he would actually tell people it's not liquor, because the directors would ask, you got no, it's pineapple juice.
Right.
And of course they drank it wasn't pineapple juice. Or lemonade, that was the other thing that he would try.
Well, they all played games, but they co-wrote the script together, he and Mae West. And actually, she did the heavy part of the script. He just wrote the bar scenes. And but you know, they were both so creative, and it was wonderful. And at the end, he actually walked off the set, and they had to use a double at the end because he wasn't there.
One of the reasons why there was friction between the two is Mae West didn't drink. She had an episode earlier in her life as a young girl where she went out drinking, came home, and then her mother caught her drunk. And because of the shame that the guilt that their mother imposed on her, she chose never to drink again. Whereas W.C. Fields was also a non-drinker until later in life. He had a serious episode in his life where his friends had died in the same year, and he got very depressed and would start to drink on the set and actually start to develop over time.
Wow.
But I find the irony, because if you look at W.C. Fields and you look at his movies, he hated kids, he hated dogs, but he actually had a dog, and he loved kids, he loved his grandson. Even with the divorce of his wife, he would send money to her and her son.
I did not know that.
He never gave up on his kids and his exes. He was always cognizant that he had to take care of them.
Makes you see him in a different light, because I always thought he was exactly what he was on screen.
No, he wasn't until later in life when the drinking kicked in.
This set a trend in Hollywood in the 1940s for comedic pairings, which set the stage for things like Abbott and Costello. And it was so politically correct again. The Indian that was like the chief that was with W.C. Fields following around, all he would say was ugh. And the Indian goes, do you have a new squaw? And he goes, yes, ugh. And it was like, you know, the Indians are going, ooh, like, and all that stuff. But I mean, that's what we were raised on. I don't think it's a big deal. And, you know, it's just part of it. And I don't think people that really get that offended. I don't think. So it was adapted from a play, this crazy thing. And of course, we said it was like the end of Mae West's career. And she fought at the end still that the bulk of this story was written by her and that he didn't put that much into it. And after that, they never worked together again.
Right.
They were done.
Well,
She hated him.
It was a box office success, regardless of what they felt about each other. The budget was $1.5 million. It made like $3+ million for the studio. So, I mean, this was a hit out of the park, even though they got paid less than they were paid when they first started.
Like Dracula with Bela Lugosi. But if you ask anybody, they kind of know Mae West because she's crossed into the culture as far as gay icons and things they make fun of in cartoons or whatever. But if you ask anybody, name one Mae West film, they'll name this one.
So how come your score wasn't higher? What didn't you like about this?
Well, I just found, I find these movies relatively entertaining, but not something that I would, as I always say, if it's on, sit and watch it. I've seen it a couple of times. That's enough. If somebody wants to see it, yes, I could sit and watch it with them, but I'd probably read at the same time. I just thought comedy was really perfected with these double people the comedic teams in the 1940s. I think this was the primitive inception of comedy.
Yeah, sure.
And it's all about the two characters, their personas. If he wasn't in it and she wasn't in it,
It wouldn't work.
you wouldn't have a movie. No. And that's why I look at it. And that's why I gave it the score I did. My favorite of all time, pretty much, Some Like It Hot. 1959, Billy Wilder's classic, timeless comedy about two male musicians who witness a mob hit. They flee the state in an all-female band disguised as two women, but further complications set in, starring the trio of Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, and Marilyn Monroe. Top notch. Watch it. Blazing Saddles from 1974. Mel Brooks' irreverent Western farce. In order to ruin a Western town and steal their land, a corrupt politician appoints a black sheriff who promptly becomes his most formidable adversary. It stars amongst Mel Brooks' regulars, Gene Wilder, Cleavon Little, and one of his favorites, Madeline Kahn. Number 3, The Bank Dick, another turn for W.C., who stars as henpecked Edward Sussay, whose name is always mispronounced as Souse, who exploits everyone with his comic adventures as a substitute film director and the most unlikely bank guard. This is an oddball one, but it's something to watch if you like the 60s. We did 60s film, you like them. The Party, 1968, a very quirky comedy. Talk about politically incorrect. A clerical mistake results in a bumbling Indian film star played by Peter Sellers being invited to an exclusive Hollywood party instead of being fired, dipping your toe immersively into the 1960s. I love this film. I wouldn't recommend it as a classic film, although it is because of the depiction of the 60s. I love looking at that stuff. Cat Ballou from 1965. This was a huge, huge hit in 65. It's a story about a young school teacher played by Jane Fonda who turns into an outlaw to avenge her murdered father. Lee Marvin plays a convincing drunk, and so does his horse. Horse again. A bit dated, but you be the judge. Not one of my favorites, Cat Ballou, but it does have Stubby Kaye and I forget the name of the singer, the black singer that everybody loved, who did the Christmas albums. I'm brain dead. But Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole. All right. All right. There you go. That's my watch list, Joe.
Thank you, Debbie. And I'm going to do my thing because my thing was supposed to come before you, but that's okay.
Well, they can edit it that way, I suppose.
W.C. Fields walked off the set over what Edward Cline felt was a minor disagreement, the director's disagreement. But when it was clear that after 2 weeks he was not coming back to finish the film, nearly 1/3 was shot using a double. Is that true or false?
True.
She got it right, folks. I have an audience question. So on that premise,
Okay.
audience, be creative, be crass, be sassy, be cynical. Who would our doubles be if you had to pick a double?
Oh, Jesus, that's scary.
So comment below. Give us your best. I would say like Freddie Mercury, but Freddie Mercury's dead. So
Jesus
who would be
Christ,
yours?
what are you going to say, me? Toady Fields or something? I'm telling you, I don't want to read those comments. Let the producers read them and filter
All right,
it for
folks,
me.
comment away, and then if you give us a real creative one, real good one, we'll give you a shout out on a future episode of the Reel Watchlist.
All right.
I love this film. For me, it was kind of bittersweet because for both powerhouses, this was the end of their career. Even for W.C. Fields.
Correct.
It was a movie later that, after this film, about a year or so later, that he was done with Universal.
Sad.
Because they kept on trying to change things, he's like, I'm not used to this. And then people were kind of tired of W.C. Fields and Mae West. And later in life,
people were coming in that were fresher. As always, they're replaced.
right. But to me, it was kind of bittersweet, and it's sort of a moment in film history. And part of my 9 is because of that, because you'll never see this type of two major characters together, one-lining each other to come up with a film like this. So my hat's off to them. You gave it a 7, though.
Well, it's quintessential Mae West and W.C. Fields to watch it, but I think that no one will pick it as their favorite film through history.
Yeah, I disagree on that. So why don't we end this episode the way that Mae West and W.C. Fields ended this episode? It was the iconic ending where each other trades their iconic lines.
Okay.
So I'm going to start.
All right.
So, Debbie, if you're ever in Roselle Park, why don't you come up and see me sometime?
I'll see you sometime, baby. I'll bring my feathers, I'll wrap them around you, and we're going to have a real good time.
Okay, you're supposed to say, okay, my little chickadee.
My little chickadee, you're my little baby, and I certainly enjoy having a baby.
And join me under this umbrella. So while I get this umbrella for 2.
Look at this giant umbrella. Okay, now we're cursed.
So, Deb, where are we going next?
Well, I think my feathers are going to stay right here because I seem to be molting. But, Joe, we never know where we're going until we go there.